Joining me now, Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He's the Deputy Republican Whip and member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman Kinzinger, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks.
First point, just to clear this up, the president said many people would have taken that meeting. You, sir, Congressman, would you have taken the meeting?
No, absolutely not. There's a couple of points to this. Number one, there are some on the other side of the aisle that are really hysteric about this. We don't know the full details. I've heard the word treason. This isn't treason. On the other hand, though, I think to dismiss this and say anybody would have met with anybody, that may be the case if you have an email that says, hey, I have some information on your opponent. But when you see that it's from the Russian government, courtesy of, your friend Vladimir or whatever, that's when you hit hard stop on that. That's when, I frankly, if it would happen to me, I would call the FBI and say, hey, this government or that government's offering me information. Do you want me to take this meeting as counter-espionage or something? But I certainly would not take a meeting with any kind of foreign intelligence agency.
And let me ask you, Congressman, this is going to sound like a strange question, but how old are you?
I'm 39, almost 40.
39, almost happy birthday. You're the same age as the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., who he consistently refers to as a wonderful young man, as if to suggest that maybe he's not old enough to understand the implications of the meeting. Do you think your age is an impediment to understanding that the meeting might not be appropriate?
No, but look, also I have a background of, I've been in the military. We learned, I've had a security clearance for a very long time. And that's not an excuse. But the other thing is just if you hear that something is provided by a government, even if it's our friends in Canada or our friends in Australia, that's when you go to the FBI and say, look, somebody's offering me information. And they usually don't do it out of the goodness of their heart. There's usually a payback on the back end of that.
You don't think your military training was required to understand that an offer from the Russian government was inappropriate?
Nope, not at all.
All right, let me ask you about something that happened. We learned yesterday that President Trump spoke to reporters for quite a long time. He thought originally it was off the record. He thought it was on the record. Now we know what he discussed. One of the things he talked about is the possibility of Vladimir Putin visiting the White House. He was asked if he would invite the Russian leader. He said, I don't think it is the right time, but the answer is yes, I would. Folks, we have perhaps the second most powerful nuclear country in the world. If you don't have a dialogue, you have to be fools. Fools, it would be the easiest thing for me to say, all of you, I will never speak to him, then everybody will love me, but I have to do what's right. Opening up the possibility of a White House meeting, if not now, at some point. You're on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Is that a good idea?
I don't have a problem with it, but not now. I think as part of negotiations, as part of diplomacy in the future, sure, but I think we have to make some things very clear early. I hope it's been delivered prior, but if it happens soon, maybe the president can deliver our Russian sanctions bill that I think we're going to pass in the next week or two. There's tweaks we're working out between both sides. I think that's going to get done. We need to sanction Russia for their election interference, not just on us, but on our allies. And I think it's important then, it's fine to have negotiations, it's fine to have talks. What I think a lot of us are waiting for, we see a president with, frankly, a pretty hawkish Russia foreign policy, I think more so than the last administration. What we're begging for out here is for him to say some words, recognizing that 500,000 Syrians are dead largely thanks to Iran and Russia, that they're backing an evil regime, and frankly, that regime is the incubator for the existence of ISIS. That's the kind of things we want to hear, and we hear it in the administration around the president. And so I have no problem with Vladimir Putin coming to the White House. I do hope it's not now, because we need to make some strong statements.
It's interesting. You were talking about conditions with which you'd be comfortable with Vladimir Putin coming to the White House. You weren't talking about conditions you would like, or concessions you want from Vladimir Putin. You were talking about things you'd like to see from the president before Vladimir Putin was invited to the White House.
I think we can get those concessions from Vladimir Putin when the president is very forceful about that. Look, Russia understands they have an economy that's about 1/20th our size. They're not our equal. Their military is in disrepair. They're trying to rebuild a failing empire of which the satellite states reject their philosophy. And so to think of the Russians as our equal, they simply aren't. But we need the president to put down a lot of, the term's been overused, but basically red lines to say, here's areas where we can't accept. And he's done that in policy, striking the Syrian base, shooting down the Su-22, hitting these Iranian elements in the deconfliction zones. These are good messages, standing with Ukraine. It's just I think we need to see a little more verbally from him, but, we'll see what happens.
You and I spoke before the president met with Vladimir Putin. You talked about the need sort of for a brick wall on the idea of Russian election meddling. And now a lot's been discussed about what actually happened inside that meeting, the Rex Tillerson version of it, the Sergei Lavrov version of it, then the Vladimir Putin version of it. And now we have a little more, from the president himself, who said he did ask Vladimir Putin a couple times whether or not Russia meddled in the election. But what's your assessment now, a week later, of how the president handled it based on what you've been told?
Truthfully, what I think the president went in there and did actually pretty well. I think nobody expected him to bring up, we were talking on all the shows, do you expect him to bring up election meddling? Most people said no. He brought it up immediately. I thought that probably would have caught Vladimir Putin off guard. But he
asked, he didn't tell. He said, did you do it? Not, you did do it and stop.
I wasn't in the meeting. I don't know the details of that. I know that the fact that he brought it up was surprising to me, and I was actually pleased about it. I don't believe that Donald Trump in his heart believes Vladimir Putin's lying that he didn't do it. This guy's a former KGB agent. However, where the damage is done is not in the meeting. I mean, meetings are meetings, they're dynamics, whatever. It's the tweeting afterwards. When you have the thing about the fusion cyber unit with Russia, that really took the president off a message of, hey, we were strong against Russia. And so he had to walk that back and did. So I think it's the tweeting in many cases, and I hear my colleagues, my friends, everybody say it, that tends to take him off message of where he could be.
All right, Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois.